This podcast is brought to you by Flex 7 from TenCate Protective Fabrics. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology. Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatefabrics.com/Flex 7.
For all your medication and narcotic tracking needs, check out the LogRX app, created by career fire and EMS professionals. That's LogRX.com.
All right, well, welcome everybody in. We're back again this month. No guests this month. Everybody just seems to be just running crazy. We couldn't get anything kind of tied down this time, so just get a little bit more dose of Captain Rowett and myself on this one. So we're going to talk about size up tonight or today, whenever you're watching this, and we're really more focused on that initial couple minutes on the fireground. And that's kind of the subject matter we're going to be delving into. But as we go through this, I think there's going to be some really highlight points. And I hope that either if you're watching at home or if you're watching in your car or listening in your car, you may want to go back and listen, jot down a few notes, and see what works best for your organization. I know every department kind of has a size up, but I've also learned over the last couple months doing some traveling that a lot of places don't have a set system for size up. And I think that's one of the things I really want to focus on. Whatever that system is, it needs to be the one system, not the Todd system, not the Rowett system, but one system. So before I go, like I'm teaching a class and go way down a rabbit hole here, my name's Todd Edwards. I own a small training company, Fire Life Training. Very fortunate, very blessed. Been extremely busy this late summer, early fall with water on the fire in Pensacola and Huntsville, Alabama. Just came back. If you're listening and you're up in the Ohio area, take a good hard look at Black Sheep. Just left that conference yesterday. Tristan Schultz and all the other guys that are up there running that conference do an incredible job. Incredible hospitality. Something to look for. They already got their date set for next September again, so they're really doing some really cool things up there. And my co-host, go ahead, Captain.
Anthony Rowett, a captain with the Mobile Fire Rescue Department. 3 years as a volunteer in northern New Jersey. Before that, like Todd, travel around teaching a little bit. Small training company. Not as busy as Todd this summer because I took time off with my kids while they were out of school, but kicked back off a couple weeks ago at Water on the Fire with Todd. So, and then busy for the rest of the year. So always looking forward to that though, getting back out and seeing everybody.
Yeah, no, it's been a really good time, and I kind of want to lead off with that though is on these small conferences. And one of the things, and for anybody who teaches or is teaching at these small conferences, a little word of warning here: we got to up our game as instructors, Anthony. I've seen from 5 years ago to today, these little conferences are having a major impact in the fire service as far as skill levels, knowledge, education. You can really see, and I keep seeing a lot of guys at the same events. I mean, and they're traveling like some of us are, and these guys are really buying into these more intimate kind of conference settings, and I have no doubt in my mind it's working. Everything that me and you do together, obviously, and then they're getting exposed to so many instructors now from all over the country, the guys that maybe they would never have seen before. I've seen better nozzle work, better stretching work, better search work. So it's exciting to see. But I was making notes this week while I was in Ohio, and I was, man, I've got to try to up my game a little bit with some of these classes. We can start taking things even deeper than we maybe had been. So kudos to all the departments, all the Fools chapters that are really out there pushing training. I think it's having such an impact. I think fire engineering being out there now, really promoting all these conferences. I see Chief David Rhodes out and about all the time. I see Corley Moore on both the podcast, The Scrap, and I see him and Amanda out doing a lot of stuff. So I think all the guys that are out there teaching and fire engineering backing so many things now, supporting so many things. Kehoe's, Elkhart Brass, all these places just constantly supporting training. And it is having a true true impact on the entire American fire service, probably more so now than ever in the history of the fire service. So for you guys who are teaching, we got to keep it up and keep grinding and keep promoting each other, keep promoting each other's conferences and training events. And I think we're having a lot of really good feedback, man. I really do. And I'm excited to get down to Alabama this spring. And I've already started thinking about some of the things down there to up the game down there a little bit more even and challenge these guys even more so than we have. So super excited about that. So I'm going to start off, and this is going to be kind of a little bit different. Usually we got a third person to bounce stuff off of. I'm going to start with the first question. And again, Captain Rowett, I'm going to let you answer this question first. In your mind, in your opinion, your education, or your experience, I guess, better way to put it, how do we start educating even the youngest firefighters when we talk about size up and that first couple, I mean, mission critical minutes on the fire ground? How do we start educating firefighters? What do you think are the most critical things to be educating young firefighters and young officers on as far as size up goes?
So one of the things I took, and it comes from our buddy Steve Robertson, that he told me, and it really stuck. And I went back and tried to do it with guys, and I saw it with myself and challenging myself to do it more, but also them. Is after a call, and not just a fire, but you make a medical call, make it about a fire, make it fun. But we talk about how much is the stretch here at this house. Also, make them tell you about the building. It started with apartment buildings where it was always when we'd come out, you're walking back and hey man, how many doors was it back to the stairs? Just getting that in their mind to always be thinking about that. How do I get out of here? In their mind of they just recognize things. And then I heard Steve say that he does it with newer firemen at fires, saying, okay, the fire's out, they're out there high fiving. Hey man, what color was the house? How many windows were on the front porch or the front side of the house, second floor? And get them looking for those details so that it becomes natural. So we started doing that, and I started seeing them have fun with it because they expected it, and then they were going to be proud of themselves when they got it right. But you do it to yourself too. It doesn't always have to be verbalized amongst everybody. You're pulling up. We try to always position the rig the same way as if the building was on fire. And a lot of times the guys come back to the rig because we swing drive a lot. We have guys act up and those. Hey, was I spotted good if this was a fire? Should I pull past a little bit more? So because they're in that position, they're looking at it, looking at the house from that standpoint just makes it more natural. And I think that goes a long way. And I think the biggest point that people made to me when I was new was you still need to do your own size up. You're not just following somebody nonstop. You need to be thinking for yourself. Even if you're on the nozzle, you are going to be tunnel visioned. You need to have the big picture as much as you can. And it was don't get drawn in to the cool part. You see the fire, you see where it is, how much you have. Now look away. See
Yeah.
where it's not, see where it's going. And that was always the biggest thing that was emphasized to me that I took was, especially at night, it's easy to get drawn into the glow. Oh, I got a fire. That's the cool part. I'm on the nozzle. That's where I'm going. But okay, well, where isn't it at yet? Where is it going? Where's the stairs? How do I get to it? And look away from it because that's what we're actually going to save is what's not on fire. We want to cut it off. We want to get between it and the victim. So I think that's always the starting point is to get your mind to, I got to see how much fire I have, where it is. Now look away. And I always heard Chief Turpak talk about it in a way that always stuck for me with that of look at where it's at. Now look where it's not, find the stairs, get in between it.
Yeah. I've listened, obviously I have Chief Turpak's book and listened to the Chief Turpak talk about some of those same exact things. And I think, again, Advantage Turpak going to a lot of fires and able to build that mindset. And I'm actually going to deliver this program this weekend in Little Rock about that, building that mindset and how we can simplify. If we simplify our size up procedures on the front end when we get there and the shit is going sideways, we're not drawn into fire coming out 3 windows on the second floor. And it's easy. And again, we're human beings first, so we are, our minds are trained to look at the most spectacular thing or the loudest thing in the room. So that's one thing that we really talk a lot about. And something else I really started delving in, I delved into a lot this past weekend in Ohio, is if we can train on the front end, and it kind of goes back to that, the American Fire Service is very good at being reactive, and we're really bad at being proactive. And I think that size up is a proactive exercise, kind of like what you're saying you're doing and what Lieutenant Robertson does with his folks. That's being proactive, and that should start. They'll get some of that in the academy, but that very first shift on the rig, start developing that, seeing past, the fire coming out of the front door and seeing, hey, this is a two-story house, so fire's coming out of the front. It's got to be going possibly upstairs, or is it venting up into the soffit into the attic area? And that's a practice thing. It can't be, hey, every time we go here, I want you to do this. It has to be something we talk about, I think, on a regular basis. Kind of went back to really focused on the size up as a skill set, but there's also an education component there when we talk about reading buildings, reading smoke, reading fire behavior from the outside of the structure. And that really feeds into our decision making, feeds into our situational awareness when we start having those proactive conversations, that when we do turn the corner, we don't get sucked into the vortex of oh my god, it's on fire. So some of the things I definitely think. So on tell again, this is how do you teach, or how do you discuss, like, reading smoke? Because the reading smoke program that Dave Dotson originally developed is one of the best programs I've ever been to. Cannot Hopefully you'll remember the gentleman's name who's doing it now.
Bill Jose.
Who?
Bill Jose.
Phil Jose, man, it's an amazing class, but for a young officer, I struggled with it. I struggled with reading smoke because I took the class. I'm high fiving, man. I'm gonna read smoke every fire now, and I was literally out in the front yard trying to read smoke as the house burnt down around us because I was too busy going, all right, velocity, volume, color, density, and I'm like, oh shit, now the fire's like 3 doors down. I'm still trying to read the smoke. So how do you teach that as part of our size up when we arrive on scene and we're being proactive? How can we educate the younger guys about how to read smoke in buildings a little bit quicker, you think?
So I kind of took the way it was taught to me and then just adapted it because more technology is available now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the way it was taught to me, my captain when I was a firefighter, he said, "Hey, this is what's really going to help you. Smoke's going to tell you everything all the time." So he gave us a printout of basically notes from Dave Dodson's class, and he did a thing on the whiteboard at the station where he went over all of it with us, and then basically said, "Write your own notes, but here's mine. And I want you to study this for like a week." And he gave us like a week. And then he made us teach it back to him to make sure we had the information as far as just that classroom setting of you do understand the information. And then it wasn't as easy then, there wasn't as much out. But what I do now is he used YouTube. He would just pull videos up, and that's what we do. And at first, I don't necessarily have them like, hey, where exactly is the fire? Where's it going? Is we watch the smoke change in a window and try to get them to time when it's going to light off. Like that you can pick up like, hey, I see that it's about to go. That they can identify the bad situation first, and then we just kind of build off of it from there. Uh, we kind of with that just when we go out, we my guys have had fun with it. It's easier being in that urban setting. You don't have to get back on the truck and ride more to get different buildings. But we'll go out, go to the peanut shop or something. Everyone buy a little bag of candy and just walk Dolphin Street where everybody can get a different building. And we go, hey, this is the situation. And I mean, they develop them situations amongst themselves. Like, okay, what would you do here? And it works for size up. But as far as smoke with that, because I can't see it, we'll just talk about, hey, you have this color smoke. It's pressurized or it's not. This is the amount of it. It's coming from this area. And a lot of times, one of the first things they're looking for is they're looking for someone to say, is it coming out the cockloft vents or is it not? To let them know if it's up there. All these things like that. But it gets them thinking in that mindset of what they're going to look for from smoke, a smoke aspect as they look at a building and they try to get as much information as they can out of it. But we use a lot of YouTube. Technologies out there. You can watch a lot of other people's fires and use it from that standpoint. Their firefighting tactics may be different than what we do in the city, but we can look at that building and say, what's the smoke doing? Where's the fire at? Where's it going? Is it about to light off? What's going to happen if you take the window? Things like this. Or you watch them take the window and we're talking, hey, we'll have the truck guys with us. Would you VES that? Look at the conditions of the smoke. What are you expecting? Things like that. And we just build situations off of it and just create a discussion about it. Hey, if we had that fire, what would we do? And it usually develops way more than it might start with smoke, but it develops way beyond that because they just get into it and start talking about, okay, what would we do here? Where would we put a line? Where would we position a truck? And it turns into a very easy drill that they're very comfortable with because it was very informal and they're just quizzing each other and bouncing ideas off and coming up. And half the time I can just sit back and they'll talk, okay, did you think that would work? Or what would you have done? And it's just them developing themselves.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you said that I want everybody who watches and listens to this is that you guys go out and get off the truck and actually walk streets and have conversations about those buildings, whether it's in a residential setting or that Dolphin Street area where you have everything from basements and 2-story, 3-story restaurants, mixed use. You have everything on that one block, right there in the city of Mobile. I think for anybody listening, if you're looking for best advice, is go out and look at your districts and your territories, and your size up gets a lot easier when you start kind of erasing some of the question marks from an education standpoint. I use like subdivisions as a good example. Very rarely, if you have subdivisions in your first two district where every house is going to be pretty much exactly the same size, it's going to have pretty much the same floor plan, pretty much the same exposure, pretty much the same setbacks with small variations. If I can size up one in that neighborhood, I can kind of size up almost every house, with the 1-story or just the 2-story floor plan, and I'll know the floor plan as well, just simply by getting out and walking those buildings. And that district knowledge is such a huge factor. And I don't think we emphasize that enough on the proactive end of doing size up. And if we're, again, I was actually pumping gas in Thornville, Ohio yesterday morning, getting ready to drive back. And as I'm pumping gas, I'm looking at a building right next to the gas station. And this thing is a 4-story, full basement, ordinary construction, caulk loft. And I'm sitting there doing a size up on a building I'm never probably ever going to see again. But that kind of develops your mindset. So when, not just on shift, guys are sitting around at home or they're out with the family, the wife's shopping, and you're out front of the Target for 3 hours, like you have to go through with your wife. Do a size up of the strip mall, do a size up of Target, do a size up of the businesses across the street. And that really develops kind of a mindset that you're kind of constantly going, oh, what would I do here? What would I do there? And it really, really helps
Well, I think one
make
thing too,
that
to add with that,
consistency.
Todd, is with your, like you said, your district knowledge adding to your size up
Mhm.
is, I know that a lot of the younger, new in the fire department don't like when they ride with us because we have this rule, but none of these in the truck.
100% agree with that.
Because what it does is this just distracts you. But if you put that down for the amount of time to ride back from the store, ride back from a call, whatever it is, if all the people on the rig, we ride 4, everyone's eyes are out the windows, you pick up everything changing in your area. First off, when you're new, I want you to know every street and every hydrant. I want you to know the water mains, all that. Well, we have guys start realizing real quick out of the academy when we go down this section of road, man, look at all those vacant houses. When we make a run in the middle of the night, oh, they're not vacant. There's people in them in the middle of the night. And you start realizing what's under construction, what's being torn down, what is vacant, what's being occupied, even though it's quote unquote vacant. And we had it just the other day. We were going to a medical run on a regular. So we know the route 100 times a month, But we go past this house. It's a giant 2-story. We've had small fires in it before. It's one of the old Victorian homes. Been vacant, quote unquote vacant, since I've been on the fire department. Been boarded up. And for us in the city, board ups are mainly plywood, 90% of the time. Once in a while, some of the plexiglass, but mainly plywood. So we would see the plywood on the front. Oh, it's vacant. When you look down the side, you see bed sheets hanging out the windows, stuff on the back porch, air drying. We knew these people were there. We're driving by the other day and it caught everybody's eye that fast, instantly. We look, hey man, that's not boarded up anymore. Now they have metal on the windows and they have VPS systems over all the windows and doors. As soon as we leave the run, hey, let's go back there. We went back there. It turned into a 10, 15-minute class of walking around it, seeing what's still boarded up with plywood, what's being boarded up with VPS systems because somebody bought the house. We saw the building permit on it, so they're renovating it, but they got the people out, changed the systems up, made it harder for us to get in because we don't deal with VPS all the time. We deal with plywood. And it became just a class. How are we going to get this off? We went through how to get them off. Okay, well, these doors, we can do this. All right, does that porch still look viable to put people on to get in those doors that are no longer boarded up? In 15 minutes, we gained a ton of information for that building that when we show up, just changed overnight from the way it's been for 16 years. And that's going to change your size, as you know. So that's a
Well,
key to get rid of the phone in the truck so you recognize that stuff.
and I think going back to that proactive mindset, like you guys, like just an absolute perfect example. Um, we were in the habit of going to the call. You pretty much went the same route to every street. Like if we're going to Ira Street, it was left out station, right on Metro, and right on University, left on Ira. That was the standard route. Well, coming back from calls, we would drop down a couple blocks and come up a different way, and we would always try to go different routes whenever possible to kind of see what was going on. Was there something new? Was there something being built? Was there a new vacant that wasn't vacant last shift? And that's how fast our districts and our territories can change. I think the example that something that you just said was vacant since you've been on the job. And now all of a sudden we got a VPS system totally different than just, plywood, and a house that's now being renovated. So that opens up another challenge. But that proactive, I'd much rather have that information today than at 3 a.m. and you have people report that there's 2 kids that were playing inside and they never came out. Those are really, really good examples of how easy it is to be proactive on this job. And when we're proactive on that end of it, size up becomes a lot simpler in the heat of the moment at 0-300. Your guys are anxious. There's 1,000 things hitting you in the brain, but that's something I can eliminate because I already know my district. I know that building. I use an example in my program of a commercial building, a flea market, where there is steel doors, burglar barred interior burglar bars with drop bars, slide locks, and padlocks in the middle of the day. So those are really simple, proactive tips that will help you with your overall size up on one of these long, lonely nights. So one
Well,
of the things that, oh,
before
go ahead.
you changing topics yet, or
No, go.
I want to add something to it that it's along the same track, but it's not the building. And I've always said that I'm blessed with who I work with because they truly care about the job, and you know them. But we deal with a lot of closed streets.
Mm-hmm.
The city's
Yeah.
good about calling and telling you, hey, this street's closed from this to this for these days or these many hours. But downtown, a lot of times it gets missed because it's nonstop. They're moving
Right.
it for this many hours. And you know Pettis very well. And he'll come to work and say, hey, I got the truck checked off. Everything's done. Can we just ride downtown? I want to know what's open and what's not. And we just get
Right.
on. And I'm obviously not going to say no, but that was never something I even thought of. That was, he came to me. I'm sick of going down the road and seeing cones out blocking the street. I got to change my mindset real quick. I want to know in advance so I can get you there as quick as I can. And he would just want to ride the streets, so he knew for that day, this street's open, this street's open. Okay, they're doing construction here. Boom. And the next day, just come in. Hey, can we go ride again? And it became habit to just do that, just so he knew in his head what was open and what wasn't, because
Yeah.
of
I
construction
love
and
that.
going
Yeah.
on. It's not the building and the size up, but it's still the same thing. It's that learning. He's sizing up his job as the driver to
Yeah.
get me where it first do. So
Yeah, and I think if you go even past what Joseph is doing, and you look at what else, I mean, from not just the overall on-scene size up, but what that proactive approach will lead to is, and you know this, I think me and you've had this conversation. Now I can actually size up my stretch. I can size up where to place my ladders. I can size up if I'm going to need a 24 on the Charlie side, or am I going to need a 28 to get to that second floor window if it's built on grade. So those are all this kind of really starts stacking, um, not just on the scene size up, but the overall fire ground, our tactical decision making, our fire attack, our hose line, all start playing a factor there. So I think it's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. How all this will kind of blend together. I'm just writing down something because it just hit me. Streets, stretch. Sorry about that. Okay. So that kind of, and again, we could literally spend 2 hours talking about all the positives of being familiar with their district, being familiar. And I get it. And I know somebody's going to say, well, I got too many buildings. Yeah, I understand that. Now, you're not going to see every street, every building. If you're covering a 400 square mile township, you're not going to see everything. I get that. But you also are familiar with where you go the most. And that's everybody has certain areas of their cities, their townships, their districts they respond to the most. We should be very, very familiar with those. If I go to the same nursing facility 3 times a day on medical, if that thing's on fire, I should know every single thing about that building, whether it's sprinklers, is it standpipe, does it have interior fire doors, are they automatic closing doors, or do we have to make sure they get closed? Are there more invalids, or are these people going to be escaping? Where do we put them to? Or where do we protect in place? Those are all things that stop, and like you said, and what Steve says, hey, let's take an extra 5 minutes and make this, cardiac arrest call a fire call now. And where we're going to position at, where we're second alarm position at. And that really can snowball into some incredible conversations. And you're really drilling without telling the guys you're out drilling. And they'll get in. And I love when the guys get into that, because then they start asking questions. Man, I don't know. Let's go ask the nursing station where they keep their spare oxygen cylinders. Got to be a room somewhere. Where's the drugstore? Where's the common areas? How late is the kitchen open? Is the kitchen fire protected? That just goes on and on and on and on. So I think those are some really, really good points there for people to take away from. The one challenge that I've been encountering more than anything else, especially when I'm delivering this program or parts of this program, is the system itself. And when I've kind of encountered where some people are religiously cut and dry, either like by blue card, where we have a small building or a mega building. I also have encountered where we have the Anthony system, and then when Timmy's working, we have the Timmy system of size up. And then when Bob's working, he does it this way, but he mixes in a little bit of this. Here's my opinion, my advice. Have one system. And if you're a training officer or an ops chief or a battalion chief, you've got to hold everybody accountable to one system of size up to build that consistency factor on our fireground. Because if I hear the same system over and over and over again, one, I'm going to say it the same way every time, and I'm going to hear it the same way because there's cues I'm looking for within that system. Mine's basic, and I'll come and I'm gonna have you hit yours. Basically, we focus on the building, the conditions, and the actions. Then it's updated after a 360 is complete. That's the building, the conditions, and the actions. And when we do it this way, for a long time, we were very focused on building construction in the system, and I took building construction out of my system. Unless it's something totally out of the ordinary for that area, if I go to a 40-story office building, it's not wood frame. We know the building construction. If we go to Main Street, that could be a combination of wood frame and ordinary and maybe some non-combustible. So I may announce there. If I go to the neighborhood, I know that's going to be wood frame. And what we found from testing is a lot of guys are so uncomfortable with saying it, they were just randomly guessing. And then decisions start being made based off of that guess. And then the chief be like, this is not wood frame. This is, non-combustible, ordinary. My favorite, we had a captain, Scott Whalen, for years in Atlanta. I don't give it could have been the 40-story high rise. And this joker would show up on the engine. Engine 9 are on scene. We got a stick and brick. Everything was stick and brick. And I asked him about it. He goes, does that brick on the outside? I said, yeah, but that's brick veneer. He said, is it brick? It's bricks, Captain. Is there any wood in there? Yeah. See? Brick and stick. Okay. But so as I've been training this more and more and more, just tell me the building. When I say the building, I'm more interested in the occupancy than I am anything else. If you tell me you have a 2-story single family dwelling, 9 times out of 10, I can assume what? Wood frame.
Yeah.
You tell me
The
40-story,
size of it too.
huh?
And if you know
Say
the
that
neighborhood,
again.
probably the size of it as well.
Yeah. So, and that was the other part of that building aspect that I love when guys do it because it's a great learning moment. I'm on scene and I have a 1-story non-combustible commercial building. Well, if you live in any suburban urban setting, I just described to you about 500 buildings that I could have pulled up on. So we've kind of eliminated that, pretty much eliminated commercial out of the matrix. And you just say, I'm on the scene. We have a one, and I'll explain this. We have a 1-story CVS. Boom. Everybody knows what I got. And in our mind's eye, we can picture the layout of CVS. We can immediately imagine the hazards with a CVS versus a 1-story commercial. Well, 1-story commercial could be a chemical company, a CVS, or Anthony Rowett's barbershop. But by saying CVS, we paint a way better, clearer picture in my building description. I don't need to say that we have a 1-story non-combustible pharmaceutical grocery store. We have a CVS. We have a Home Depot. I don't need to tell you Home Depot's large. Home Depot's large. Now, if you pull up and you got some weird makeshift Home Depot in your city, then you can say, "Hey, the little Home Depot's on fire," which I imagine that could happen. I don't need to tell you what the construction is of a mobile home. I think we should all know that. I don't think I need to tell you that a 40-story high-rise building is type 1 construction. I don't need to say it's type 1 fire resistive. It's a 40-story office building. We're good. We should be good there. What are your thoughts on the building? Why just kind of add on to the building and we'll move on to the next part of the system.
Yeah, so we do still say a lot of times some of the stuff you guys cut out, and it's in that matrix we have in our OGs. This is because this is how we're going to give our size up reports. And I think, like you said, to the one thing, what it's done for me is when we all say it the same way. I think more important than just I'm going to say it that way. When I'm not first due, I hear it the same way. There's a lot going on in the rig. You're getting updates on the computers. You're trying to pass that on to the guys, and you're not hearing everything, but you're hearing those cues. And I'm just trying to figure out where I fit in. That's all I'm trying to figure out when we go, because I'm going to see it when I get there. I'm going to see what you have when I get there. I'm just trying to figure out where I fit in. If I'm going to be the 72 engine and I'm going to be pulling a backup line, and you said you're got a 2-story with fire out one window on the second floor and it's a bedroom fire, I'm probably expecting you to be at the top of the stairs or making the fire room by the time we get to the front door. My guys might be focusing, okay, they probably got it. We might be helping with the search once they say they got water on the fire. Or if they aren't there yet, something's wrong. They've run into hoarding conditions, whatever it is, we need to help them with their line. And because we're not where we fit in usually. So that's what I'm trying to hear is where do we fit in? I know the truck guys are trying to hear that. Where are they going to fit in? If they're going to the floor above or something, do they expect you to be close to the fire by the time they get in there? That's going to be a big thing for them. So when you say it the same way all the time, it's very easy to key in on those cues that are going to tell you where you fit in on that fire ground when you get there. So your mindset's already running. But we say it all the same way. It's pretty simple for us. Fire alarm engine 3's on scene, 2-story wood frame residence. I got fire showing out the second floor front of the building. We're going to be pulling 1 3/4 of the front door. If you didn't lay your own line, next in engine, bring me a line. And what I started doing is if wherever I was able to give the truck a spot is tell them where it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now we operate off a bulk bed, so usually I can just tell them you got truck 4, you got the front of the building. And I was able to pull far enough past that they have everything from both corners and across the front. But a lot of our companies operate off pre-connects. So hey, you got a spot at the AB corner or the AD corner, whatever it is. Let them know where there's an opening for them and get them in there. It might change the route they take, or tell them what route to take to get a spot. I tried doing that more, even though it's not in our OGs. I've worked with that captain for a long time, and we have a good working relationship. If I can tell him that, I know he's getting his spot. He's got an
Right.
awesome driver that'll snake that truck into any spot. So if I can tell them how to get there and get it, they're going to get the ladders up and all that. So it doesn't take me that much longer to just say, truck 4, you got a spot in front of the building. Or
Yeah, and I think
if
that
we're able to, especially if we had to stop short for some reason, we
right.
go past, let them know that because it's out of the ordinary and get them their spot.
Yeah, and I think, and again, I'm not saying do it this way or do it that way. What I'm saying is, me and Anthony are having a conversation about a system. I don't care what your system is. If you want to go into a 45-minute description and that's what your procedures say you do, then do it. But giving out the most critical information. There's a big difference between a single family residential and a multi-family residential when it comes into exactly what Captain Rowett just said about where do I fit in. Well, as a truck boss at 3 a.m. on a multi-family residential, I have got to be 1,000% focused on where am I going to position, where am I going to make entry after primary search? Am I searching the apartment that's on fire or do I need to get above it based on the fire's location? All those little things, and simply saying the building itself starts our entire incident off in a proactive manner, in my opinion, versus working because our old when I came on was on the scene, 16 on scene, 10W. 10W was 10 met on scene, and W was working fire. That was it. That was our size up process. 10W, and that's what everybody was looking for. Nobody heard nothing else than 10W, 10W, 10W. If you heard that, you were going to work. That's all anybody cared about. So the other, after we give the building, whatever system you guys decide to go with, if you want to add construction, great. If you don't, great. Whatever you guys do or what you're not doing. The other end of that's the conditions. And I see guys really struggle also, not just with building story, but how to say the conditions. And they tend to get too wrapped up into every very minor detail. If I've got smoke showing, I've got smoke showing. I don't need to say I've got smoke showing from the front door, the Bravo side window, second floor, and a little bit out of the eaves on that. And I've heard guys when they're training on this get very so focused on every little detail. I'm on the scene. I give my building. I have smoke showing, and if it's smoke everywhere, smoke throughout. If I've got fire showing, fire throughout, or if I have fire out one window, the critical thing I really emphasize in the teaching of this, and which I would really strongly emphasize or encourage people to do, not just that I have fire showing, but where. That is the most critical element of your entire size up when we talk about the conditions. If you have a 2-story or 3-story or 4-story, where's that fire located at? Fire on one in a 4-story multifamily is going to be a hard fought, dangerous fire. And it also exposes 3 floors of people above that fire to smoke and products of combustion. So I really, really emphasize you got to tell me what floor. If it's a multi-story building, you've got to tell us what floor and what side. If you've got fire off the Bravo side, then it really helps with exactly what Captain wrote. Where do I fit into this picture? Do I make entry through the front door as the truck, or do I need to find a window or a ladder to the second floor, go to the Charlie side and find a back door to make entry for my primary search? Does my backup line need to be stretched somewhere differently to protect the attack line? So all those come into play when we talk about where we see the fire. And, in some cases, further down the road, I love to hear if I've got fire out one window or 5 windows. Another thing, that's painting a picture. If I got one window, room and content 9 times out of 10. We'll fire out 3 windows on 2 floors, a lot bigger fire. I've got fire that's taking control of a floor possibly or multiple rooms depending on what the building is. What do you guys do on conditions?
Yeah, and one thing you said, we're big on the which side of it's on, which floor and which side. We rarely ever really say Charlie, and a lot of times we don't say side A. It's front and rear. Can't
Yeah,
really screw that one up. It really helps people out. They're not having to think. They know the front, they
right.
know the back. So we do that. And some of it's our own terminology. If you hear us pull up and we say, "Hey, we got fire showing out the front," it's out everything in the front on that floor. We if we can, we'll say, it's out 2 windows, but a lot of times if you hear it's out the front, showing in the front, it's everything in the front, the windows and doors, it's out the front, and it's that floor. and then just trying to tell you, or hey, we've got fire showing side 2, the front and side Bravo. Okay, well, it's in that corner. Um,
Yeah.
we're working towards the counting windows. It's not as consistent
Oh yeah.
as that, but we are pretty good about saying it's in it's on this floor, this side or this area, whether it's the front, the rear, the front and side B, or side B in the rear, so you can at least pinpoint to where it's at.
And we just saying, and and I hear guys, we got flames showing. I want to hear fire, not flames. That's just me. Smoke, same way. And there's somebody said, well, what about if it's in between? Just say smoke showing. Is it light or is it heavy? Don't give me, it's medium. We have
Like,
medium smoke showing. The building will help describe it better. If I have on the scene, we have smoke showing from a Home Depot, that's a big fire. I don't give a crap how much smoke you have. Smoke coming out of Home Depot is a big fire. Smoke coming from a one-story single family could be everything from food on the stove to something rocking in a crawl space or a basement. So I like to hear heavy fire showing, heavy smoke showing, light smoke showing, and then I tied that into what the building was that he gave me in the first go around. And that really starts putting that all this proactivity before everybody else is there, starts kind of setting up my fire ground for easier decision making, especially if you're coming in as the second, third due, or if you're the first arriving battalion chief. He can start making tactical decisions based on all of those type of things. Kind of going back to the building and the conditions, I think kind of tie in hand. I get asked this a lot. Do I need to say small, medium, or large? And what my recommendation is if it's out of the ordinary for the district or the territory, then give that information. If it's your standard, subdivision, just say what you have. If you've done your job on the front end, being proactive and knowing your districts, I don't need to tell you. I don't need to tell you Home Depot's large. I don't need to tell you at a residential mansion that got built in the middle of the urban area for some weird ass reason. I'm gonna say, on the scene we have a large 2-story residential. Then I may say it then. But I like to have that flexibility in any system that whether I have the new guy, if he sticks with the building, the conditions, and the actions, he's going to be golden every time. He's not going to miss the mark by much. If I have a more senior guy like you, Captain Rowett, I would expect you to say, this weird ass house that we've been driving by for 30 years is rocking. I'd totally understand what you were saying. But I think the conditions and the location really dictate a lot more than we sometimes give. So I'm really anal about conditions and location of where you see the smoke or where you see the fire at. Is it throughout the whole building? I caution fully involved. If you're a fully involved guy, um, I'd caution you on fully involved. I look at a lot of YouTube videos and I hear the radio traffic on the scene. Fully cops especially don't buy into the cop size up because cops love how the whole damn block's on fire. And it's a room of content fire. But for a young officer, when they hear fully involved, the gears change and they're thinking, oh, we're just going to stretch lines and stand outside and squirt water. If it's fully involved, it's fully involved. But god dang, make sure it is fully involved for you to give that terminology. If I get there, I may say we have heavy fire throughout. Then I can update. Hey, second floor still rocked. Has no visible fire on Charlie's side. Now my truck company knows they can VES. It's a VES opportunity for my truck guys or another engine company on the back. And then what do you guys do for actions? Or is that it? You just do building conditions or do you advise if you're offensive or defensive?
So we don't usually say offensive or defensive, but we tell what our actions are going to be. So if it was just a regular house, I'm going through the front door. I tell them a lot of guys will say pre-connect or 1.75 inches, and it doesn't. It kind of translates it. They're going to say 2.5 if they went with that. And which door we were going through. So I would say we're pulling 1.75 inches going through the front door. And then if I had something specific outside the ordinary for the next in company to do, I would tell them. So we pulled up to something. I know this house. It's a hoarder house or something. Engine 8, back us up on this line. Don't worry about the second line. Or engine 8, bring us a plug at the end. I set it at fire the other day. We got a plug at the intersection of Clay and Lyons. Bring us that plug. So we'll give what we're gonna do and an order for an incoming company if we need it.
Yeah, and I like that. I like getting the guys in the mindset, especially if it's a little bit of delay. If you work for a department that that next two engine isn't getting there for 4 or 5 minutes, or my chief officer's not going to get there for 5 or 6 minutes. I like for that first arriving company as a bit. And this is battalion chief stuff coming out in me here. I like to know offensive. If you're offensive, I know you're already pulling in street quarter. But when we say the words offensive, I know the guys are there's no messing around. We are head first charging through the door. Midwest City, where Chief Brush works, they do their size up is very good. It's similar to this to a degree. They are very search focused as far as not piling everybody through the front door. And I just sat in a class that Chief Brush did. It was one of the best classes I'd sat in a couple of years, and all reality is new. But they don't say transitional. I forget the words now, but they announced that they're going to be hitting it from the outside basically, and then going offensive. So offensive outside or exterior offensive, something like that is how they term it. But it really paints a great picture for the next arriving units of exactly what action's already in motion versus just stretching a line. And I'm not arguing or disagreeing with what you guys do, but for guys learning a system, it really starts kind of building upon the conditions. Now I'm going to be offensive, or am I going to be defensive, or am I immediate rescue? I arrive on scene. Those two kids. There's somebody coming out the front windows. So on the scene, we have a 2-story single family, heavy fire throughout the first floor. 2 people come out second floor. We're rescue mode. Boom, and we go to rescue. Now everybody else knows that second engine knows that they have to stretch a line. The truck knows they may have to back us up on making the rescue or the grab. And it also really announces everybody else, leave me alone. Don't talk to me. I got my hands full right now too.
Yeah. So
Then
for
we
us,
start to build.
we say we're stretching the line is which door we're taking it to. So everybody,
Yeah, I love that.
that's
Yeah,
always
offensive alpha side.
is that we're taking inch 3/4 through the front door. Second in, if
Yeah,
they're in the backup, they know that they have to go through the same door we did to back us up. So that's where ours came from, was that
I
emphasis
like
on
it.
taking the line.
Yeah, yeah, and I like that. And I like all that. And so, and the next common question I get asked: when do I tell everybody about all the other stuff? And when I say what other stuff, they're like, well, what about there's burglar bars and there's exposures and there's gates and there's a pit bull in the front yard. My opinion, my advice: it's a critical factor if it's critical to the operation and it's a hazard to the operation. Don't get wrapped up into there's a power line on the Alpha Delta corner and it's sagging. It's too much. If the exposure's there, fine. But if the exposure's not in danger at this moment, I, I make a mental note and I move on. Only thing I'm going to announce radio wise is all income units, be advised we have a power line in the front yard so nobody gets, electrocuted. Or we have exposure on the Bravo side with second engine, cover the Bravo. So those are things in your system that have to be worked through and worked on, and that's really driven solely based on your response matrix. Do I have, like, for Mobile, places like Atlanta, FDNY, you blink and there's 5 engines there. But in the place I just was, they're going to have to do a lot of work and then go, they should be here any second. So there's a lot more that can go out over the radio that may have a bearing on our overall fire. And unfortunately, 360 is a whole other topic, but we don't need to run around a circle around the building. If we position apparatus correctly, we only typically need to see the Charlie side. But I will say this: you have to get eyes on the Charlie side early in your operation. How do you guys address that when it's with you guys, as far as, like, do you do the 360 or does the next boss do it?
Usually, most times somebody else. Uh, so it all kind of just depends. But a lot of times somebody else gets it. But like what you said is we don't announce much to update the size up. The chief and like you said, our people come on scene right behind each other. You know, if you
Yeah.
had to look at a map, you just got beat in kind of deal. And
Yeah.
that includes the chief. So we give the initial size up report, the chief gives the next update, and then we only update it if it's something that's very out of the ordinary that makes you kind of step back. So recently I can think of 2 fires I actually gave an update where, hey, everyone pay attention to this. One was the power line dropped and landed right on it's a metal fenced in front yard and it electrified the fence. Hey, just be advised, everyone coming in. The gate was already open, so we're good. We can go in, but don't touch the fence. Other one, was just a couple weeks ago. Was we came in like the third, fourth due engine, and everything was just there was report of somebody possibly trapped. Things were moving slow. They were struggling to get in the front door, which we found out later why. Um, but I walked up to the chief. Hey, chief, engine three's here. What do you need? He said, man, just get in the rear. They said somebody's in there. Okay. So when soon as we get the fence open to get around the rear, usually we see a messy yard or something. Okay, well, there's some hoarding out in the yard, but from the front, it was so different. And the front was very, very well kept. You didn't see anything out of the ordinary in the front yard. And to get to the back, I had to climb over tons and tons of stuff to where initially I just looked at my guys and said, hey guys, pull up your socks. It's going to be bad when we get inside. Like if it's this bad out here, be prepared inside. And as it just kept getting worse as we got closer to the back of the house, it was enough to say, hey, everybody, be prepared for bad hoarding conditions. We have it outside. As soon as we took the window and we dove inside, hey, Chief, we have extreme hoarding conditions in here. Because now the biggest thing to me was your timing is going to be completely off. Everything you expect me to tell you or my advance to go for me to clear these rooms is going to be off because we
Oh
don't even
yeah.
know. It's 6 feet tall with no go paths. I mean, and we couldn't find the doors to the next rooms because they were blocked with stuff. And it was just very, very slow and methodical moving. But it was also, this is what, if you haven't got an update from the front, this is probably what's slowing them down, but this
Right.
is what we're dealing with. And it was enough to say it multiple times. Hey, Chief, we're moving, but we're going very slow. We're having a lot of problems back here just moving around. And that's kind of the only times we really do that. We really try not to talk much on the radio. You'll hear primary search is complete, all clear, whatever, and you got water on the fire and fire's knocked down. And other
Yeah.
than that, we really, really try to stay off the radio in case something goes bad, someone can be heard. But unless you hear something like that, gives you that pucker moment, you go, oh, this is out of the ordinary. This is bad. That's when we say it. But other than that, we really try to stay off the radios. We let the
Yeah.
chiefs talk to us and respond and just give them valuable information if we have it. But we try not to do too much stuff where we're just, hey, we found this or hey, we found that. It's just if you go, oh shit, that's bad. Everybody
Yeah.
needs to know this.
Yeah, and I think that's where when guys ask that question, if if you're listening to this and you're looking at tweaking your system or adding to your system or teaching your system to new guys, don't get off into the weeds. I think is one of the things I hear. I was just somewhere and that's what they were told they had to say, and it was a laundry list of things with a 3-person engine company. I said, how are you saying all of this mess and stretching hose and assisting with the fire attack? Time you do all that, you could already walked in the door and put the couch that was on fire out. But it was just a laundry list of things that their SOG or that particular boss wanted them to say, and they're looking at some change right now as well because of that, trying to explain what all goes on, on the fire. But if we stick with the building, however you want to do your building with or without the building construction, adding in the out of the ordinary stuff, I think is an easy way to go. The building, the conditions, and the actions. However, whether you say we're stretching industry recorder or we're in offensive operations, I think that simple, down and dirty, and the only time we should add a lot to it is when we have multiple critical factors, obvious rescue, obvious hoarder conditions, like you just said, exposure starting to light off or smoke. Those to me are the critical factor things that need to be on the initial report for that first arriving engine company. I'm a huge fan in that first boss. If you have any delay, some to get eyes on the rear. just cannot emphasize that enough. I've seen it bite us on my job, that eyes didn't get on the rear, and it was a part of a factor with line of duty death. Definitely been a factor in some civilian line of duty deaths. Just simply getting eyes on the rear early, like within the first minute, 2 minutes of the operation. If I've got a good firefighter and a good driver, they don't need me to stretch hose anyway. We've already done that, being proactive on the front end. I should be able to peel off for 30 seconds to see the back of that house or back of that apartment building and come through. And the same thing, common sense. I'm not doing a lap, and I'm not running around the back of Home Depot. Hey, Chief, I can't see the rear. Drive around yourself, boss. So those are those little things when we talk about the initial is the building, the conditions, the initial actions that you're taking as the initial arriving, and then building your systems from there. But I think the key thing is to have a system like we talked about early on, and being proactive early on. Not, man, sure wish we would have went and looked at this thing as it's burning around you, and we've all been to that fire too. So, hell, I didn't even know that building was here. That's one of my all-time favorites. From a guy who actually worked that station for like 20 years. I didn't know this building was here. Bro, how do you not know that building's here? I've been in this building 10 times. How do you not know it's here? I've been here for a year. So I think those are things we want to kind of look at. So I want to wrap with this one, though. As first arriving, and this seems to be kind of like the new debate I keep hearing in the fire service, as an engine company, water or people first?
We're water, but a lot of that is driven by our system as well.
Yeah.
Everybody showing up at the same time, double house, the truck showing up right behind me. There's
Right.
one time in my career that we audibled from that.
Yeah.
And now there was in the earlier time of my career, I was on a second due truck on a second alarm working overtime, and we pulled up and they saw somebody at the window.
Yeah.
And the engine pulled up, and it happened to be our operations chief, second in charge of the fire department. It was right down the street from his office, came to the fire. The engine boss told his crew, get the ladder, get ground ladders, get them. And the chief of department said, stretch the line, truck 4 is right there. Do your job, let them do theirs. And that is our focus, that, hey, there's someone there, tell him. I got the fire, he's going to get them. I got to buy him time. But we did have that fire where we're stretching a line. I forced the door. My guys are coming up with the line, and I hear screaming inside. And when I'm used to when I get the door forced, that truck's coming right past my shoulder. Our timing is there. We know each other very well, and they weren't there. I look back. Truck boss was off that day. Some different people than usual, and they were a little bit slower out of the house. So when I turn and look, they're just turning in the block.
Yeah.
Well, at the moment I had to decide, well, there was another engine already there. There was another engine living in our firehouse at the time because they had renovations going on. So they were already there. I said, hey, man, y'all got this line. Looked at my guys. Hey, drop the nozzle. Let's go. And they were like, no, you taught us we never give our line. Was I heard him screaming. If he stopped, I had an idea of where he was. And we had the only company that day on scene with 4 people, not 3. We could cover a lot of ground fast. Looked at him, and we worked together a lot. We're first and due, second due all the time. Hey, bro, you got it. He's like, oh, what? And I said, we got to make a rescue. I got it, go. And we took off. We found him, and that line still came in right behind us. It was just an audible because of a delay in the response of the truck. But our typical response is the engine handles the water, the truck handles the search, because we are coming in at the same time. So that say we are water first, but there is more to it than just the fact that we're going to stretch. And that is our system of a lot of people very, very fast.
And that's one, and the reason I brought that up, because I had a student about a week or so ago say, well, I'm hearing that we go right to search and it's people before water. I said, I know exactly what you're talking about because I've been to Chief Ike's class. And he's 100% right. It's people before everything. Understand that it's situationally driven. Don't take everything because you heard a sentence or a catchphrase. Don't take that as the Bible. It's situationally driven. If I pull up and somebody's coming out a window, it is people before water. But if you look at all the numbers, all the standards, more people are saved with properly placed hand lines and water than they are just doing, searches. So I think there has to be a balance there with everything else we do in this job. Obvious rescue, obvious need, small kitchen fire with people trapping. That water can works. If you haven't been to Eric Wheaton's class, take that class. That can works. It puts out a lot of damn fire. If nothing else, it'll at least buy you a few seconds while you bring grandma out of the back bedroom. So I think the fire service as a whole, there is so much information out there sometimes that guys hear bits and pieces and they try to apply every little bit and piece, thinking they got to change everything they're doing.
Yeah, just muddy the water.
Yeah, and sometimes and I get as great as all these conferences are, and they are great, and it's making an impact. Like I said at the beginning, go back and apply it to what works for your department, not because you heard, Ray McCormack said, this is the way you always have to do it. Well, that's not what Ray's ever said. He'll never say that. Take what works for what you learned and apply it to your company, your district, your city, your organization, your tools, your equipment, your apparatus, your hose, your nozzle packages, and take bits and pieces of certain things and apply it. When I talk about a size up system, if you're a blue card, you're kind of locked in, obviously. But there's parts of blue card I agree with. There's a lot about blue card I disagree with. But the system's got to be rule one for me on any size up system. Consistency, consistency, consistency. If you have a 40-minute thing you do for size up, then do your 40-minute thing, but do it 40 minutes every single time. Don't do 38. I want to hear all 40 every single damn time. But if you have no system or you have the 10 different way system, that's where the correction needs to be made. It has to have a system of size up, like Captain Rowett said, because now we're all saying it and hearing it the same way every single day, whether it's nothing showing because it's an alarm bell or, half the block's on fire. We're all saying it and hearing it the same way every day. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, and I think you just said something with the alarm bell. That's something we do is we give the same size ups for alarms as we do if it's a fire. It's good practice. And we
Yes.
always just go to alarms by ourselves. We send full responses. So
Mm-hmm.
am I staging? Am I rolling in? What's going on here? What am I supposed to do? Again, where do I fit in? But there's the practice.
Yeah.
I tell my guys on your drive to work at every stop sign and every red light, just look at a house and tell yourself a size up.
Yeah.
On the way
Yeah.
home, give a Mayday report in one of the buildings on the way home. Those are the
Yeah.
two we got to be able to say naturally without thought. So, not without thought, but you know what I mean? Not having to put all our emphasis on our thought process of what am I going to say? It's experience it and it naturally comes out.
Yeah.
But I think what you said is the key when with a podcast, a class, a training, a conference, whatever it is, everything's regional in the fire service. And we have to understand that. You can't
Mm-hmm.
change because Todd Edwards said it was the way that worked for him, or Anthony Rowett, or Ray McCormack, Mickey Farrell, whatever it is. You got to go back and evaluate for your department and see how it fits.
Yeah.
And the last question you asked is the big one for me. You can hear me say 99 out of 100 times we're going to stretch the line and truck force handling the search. You have to evaluate, do you have the same system as me?
Yeah.
Are you having 4 engines in a truck or 4 engines in 2 trucks and a chief, an ambulance with certified firefighters all show up within minutes of each other? And most of them, literally, when you set the air brake, the next one's pulling in. That's a big factor in that decision for me to stretch the line and just leave it for him. He's literally going past my shoulder as we get the door forced. You have to evaluate that part too. It's regional, it's department specific, staffing specific, operations specific. You can't just take this is how Anthony's department does it. This is how Todd did it in Atlanta. You got to look at your system, evaluate your system and how it works. Because if you're a single engine by yourself for 5 minutes, my system does not work for you.
Right.
Almost 30 guys on scene in that same amount of time.
Yeah.
And we're not the best staff fire department in the world, but we're still dropping 30 guys that fast. So
Yeah.
that does factor in, and you got to factor that in when you evaluate the idea to change.
110% agree with you right there as far as our, everything we've talked about, and just kind of recap at the very beginning of this, because I think if I wanted anybody to, when they turn this off, to remember is more proactive and less reactive. Getting out there and knowing your buildings, knowing your districts, knowing your streets, knowing your hydrants, knowing your stretches, knowing your ladders. how much easier the overall size up even becomes. Because a lot of decisions, again, you're not going to hit every single building in your city, but I can sure in hell hit every part of my city or my district, whether it's I have a commercial area of, warehouses. Well, I got a lot of size up practice right there by driving up and down, Industrial Parkway, 500 Industrial Parkway. Well, we've got 40 warehouses on that block. I'm just using these as an example. How would you size up Amazon? Have you done an Amazon size up? And there's a lot of places, those mammoth Amazon distribution centers are coming up. That one you may say, on the scene, mega, everything in the world's on fire, send me everybody size up. That may be that size up. So that is where, going back to what Captain Rowett said, your system comes into play. Your being proactive will save you a lot of heartache one of these nights on a building that shouldn't bite you, but it will bite you if you haven't taken that more proactive approach and went and looked at it and made some decisions on long before you have a fire there. Way easier to do it when we're in our shorts and t-shirts versus when we're trying to do everything in a 30-second span, trying to spit all this information out, get hose lines, tell the rookie what to do, tell the driver what to do, where to park it. Man, do all that on the front end. It gets a whole lot easier. Cameron, where you going to be at?
I'm heading tomorrow to Jacksonville, Alabama, and then a couple weeks to Athens, Alabama for their departments. And then Hammond, Louisiana, Lake of the Ozarks, the Old South Pools up in northern Mississippi. If you're in that area, look into it. It's raising money for a very good cause. I'll leave it at that. You could research the conference and see, but really trying to help the family member of a fireman going through some stuff. So glad to be a part of that and being able to go up there and help raise some money for that. And then just already starting for next year. So
very good. Yeah, and I'll be in Lake of the Ozarks. If you're interested in a conference, you're up in that Missouri area or somewhere close, the hands-on is going to be insane. So, take a look at that. Camera will be with me. We're going to have we're going to have a whole host of instructors for this one and some truly rock stars, including Kyle Ramagus. We're going to have a chief from Houston with us. We're going to have somebody from the Missouri area who works for Key Hose with us. So we'll have a lot of interesting instructors and a lot of hard work for our hands-on. The group I'm leading for live fire leadership, so that's going to be a really good one. Heading to Little Rock on Thursday. Super excited about that one. Wish I could stay longer, but that department, First In Conference, is one of my new favorites. They do a lot of incredible things, and those guys are they're killing it at that conference. So hopefully that'll be something we see just get bigger and bigger and bigger in that region of the country too. So, guys, I appreciate your time, and I know we crammed in a lot in a little over an hour here. If you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to me and Captain Rowett, and we're happy to talk fire anytime, day or night.
This podcast is brought to you by Flex 7 from TenCate Protective Fabrics. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology. Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatefabrics.com/Flex7.
For all your medication and narcotic tracking needs, check out the LogRX app, created by career fire and EMS professionals. That's LogRX.com.